Tales from the Spacepod is intended for mature, open-minded audiences only. If you are easily offended, I suggest you turn this wacky shit right off. Otherwise, welcome to the pod.
Oh, now we got an echo. And now we got witchery in this test.
Christopher F. Hart.
Maybe tonight if we get the echo.
Good.
Oh, it's
Right.
back. Test.
Want to put some reverb in there?
None needed.
Christopher.
You know, this is a night of witchery. So we're probably going to have all sorts of problems because we are talking about witches, bitches. A bewitching little show I've got for you heathens tonight, I dare say. Now, we did a show on the Salem witch trials. God, that's got to be maybe a year ago?
Oh, it was
last year, I think. But so we're going to sort of sidestep most of that, but we're going to delve into some of the actual history of witches and witchcraft. Going to learn a thing or two about some shit. So sit back. That should be the Spacepod slogan. Going to learn a thing or two about some shit.
I actually really like that.
Here in tonight's program.
Feels right.
Yeah. Well, John Mark will probably join us. We haven't really officially changed the time that we start the cast. We are recording earlier lately, and he seems to jump in about 10, 15 minutes into it. So I guess he can't be blamed for that. We originally changed because of him. So maybe now that he has a different job, we can just aim for an earlier night. Fine by me.
Before we jump into the news,
witchery echo. Oh, I think it's gone. Go ahead.
I just want to say I'm very lucky to be alive today. I nearly died yesterday, and this is no joke. And It's my own doing, my own stupidity.
Oh, let's go right into this.
Okay, so it was my cousin's wedding this weekend in Lake Chelan.
Oh, yeah.
And it was wonderful. It was a 4-day affair, so I was up there for 4 days, kind of running nonstop, helping him, do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So the house we rented, there was about 15 family members staying in it at any given point. It was a huge house on the lake, and I just kind of couched it the whole time so couples could have beds and whatnot. And I didn't get any sleep, basically, for 2 nights straight.
Yeah.
Because I was, not because I was partying, unfortunately, but just because, it's a wedding. So,
No, seriously. It's a spot. It's hard to sleep in other places that's not your own bed, too. I get it.
Well, no, we had sick family coughing all night, and I'm in the living room just listening to this symphony of terrible noises.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm driving home, and I had to get up at 6 a.m. and leave Sunday morning. This is after all-day wedding festivities till, basically 2 in the morning. So I get up at 6 a.m. because they're going to have a lane closed at 10 where I need to be, and I guess it would have been fucking terrible. So I'm cruising along, and I'm tired. I got a coffee, and I had to do a lot of passing because, as you're going over those, the passes, you have to literally get around big trucks.
Sure.
So I'm fucking getting tired, and I know it. And I'm like, God damn it, I'm really struggling to stay awake. I still have like 2.5 hours, 3 hours on this drive.
Yeah.
Ugh. So I put my music on, I'm singing along. Next thing I fucking know, I wake up, and I think I'm passing, but I'm not. It's just a car in front of me, but my body's like, oh my God! And I slam on my brakes, and I swerved all over, and I was fortunate there was nobody near me, and I was fine, but I fucking scared myself. Like, I've never fallen asleep driving.
Yeah.
Word to the wise. Don't fucking get sleepy.
It's a horrible thing. Dude, I did that on my street bike once. I was coming back from seeing a girlfriend over in on the coast, and then I was coming over the pass. I stayed up all night waiting for her to fucking come home, and she did, and it was like already dawn. I'm like, all right, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm going home.
You dropped your dick
dude, I was coming down. I was coming down from the pass, Stevens Pass, and I got over the pass part, and my eyes were heavy, like what you were saying. I'm sure your head was nodding. I was doing it on the bike, and I opened up my eyes, and I was crossed over 2 lanes and almost like probably 3 feet away from the guardrail on the other side. Fucking about shit my pants. It woke me up really fast.
I don't know why. I mean, it's all tragic and the thought of just someone falling asleep on a bike and just sort of like slowly going off the road. Dude's fucking asleep. I don't know why. It's the same thing as a car, but
what I'd like to see more is the guy in the crotch rocket slowly slumping over into like snuggle position,
snuggles into death. Anywho, I wanted to talk a little bit about my trip through an old local mansion here in town, the Jones and Jones Funeral Home building, to be precise. Now, this is one of those locally famous buildings, I guess. It's been dormant for about 10 years, and everyone I know has a dream and a plan for this place. It's one of those buildings. It's a rad old colonial-style brick mansion, and it's huge. It's around 20,000 square feet. And we couldn't keep a good count on how many rooms this place has. Holy fucking shit, though. So I recently met a girl named Rhea, and I mentioned her a few shows back. She was the cute rockabilly girl that helped run the event that I and a few of my radar station cohorts did a little talk for. Remember I mentioned that back at the college a few weeks ago? Yeah. I basically started stalking her until she finally decided to hang out with me. And so we were chatting whilst watching a kickball game. Of all things, the
kickball game.
The old you. And she mentioned an idea she had for a local music venue. And she was starting to look for at some of the local buildings around town. One being the Jones and Jones mansion. And this got my attention, and I asked if I could tag along, just to see the place. Now, I've been in this place many a time for funerals, and I've really only been in this one part, and it was when you first walk in, there's a couple of viewing rooms, and then the chapel. That's all I'd ever really seen. I even used to sing those super depressing old religious songs behind a curtain for $40 a pop. Good little Saturday afternoon job. They didn't want to see you because you weren't part of the family, and it was odd to just have this dude come up. So they put me behind the curtain, like Wizard of Oz, and I would sing Amazing Grace. All old-timey. They made me sing it all old-timey. $40 a pop, son. To clean up on a Saturday afternoon. Death is good biz. That was, by the way, also the last place I ever saw my best friend Danny. Murdered back in 2005. So I have quite a history with this place and some strong connections, and I just wanted to crack at seeing the whole building. I knew it would be kind of weird going through the funeral home stuff. So we show up, and holy shit, I had no idea what to expect. But honestly, I would have gladly paid $15 to go through this beast. So we start at the place, like I already mentioned, the funeral home part. Now, I should note that this was not built to be a funeral home, which in a funny way makes it extra creepy. It was just some rich family's mega mansion to begin with, and built in the late 1800s. I think they made their fortune off some type of Apple-related product, of course, being around here. But it was sold in the 20s and converted into a funeral home. Now, it's got all the dreary trappings of a typical funeral home, of course, but the first little room we go into is the room where I saw Danny's body on display before his funeral. And it's a strange feeling being back in there, of course, but at this point, the lights were all off. There was power to the building, but most of the lights, it had been dormant for 10 years, like I said, so most of the lights were burnt off or they weren't working. There was the only light in that room was from a poorly painted faux stained glass window, which the realtor opened up, revealing the light source to be a dingy little 60-watt bulb. Isn't that I just thought that was the most beautifully depressing shit. Like, sorry your loved one is here on a slab. Enjoy this pathetic attempt at hope. Coming from a 60-watt bulb made to look like the sun shining through a poorly painted stained glass window. I fucking loved that. So then things got really fun as we made our way through this. It's a fucking time warp. Creep fest is what it is, because it's fascinating because the place had been renovated at different decades in different spots. So you had Victorian-style wallpaper and hardwood floors in one room, clown red shag carpet and green countertops in the next, and Art Deco purple-on-purple tile bathrooms. It was so much fun just for that. And you could see all the little custom-built shit, like giant body cupboards in the walls, and the fucking incinerator chimney goes right through the house, like right in the middle of it on all floors, just like right in the middle of the living room. Imagine if that sprung a leak, son. You'd be breathing people. I found that so creepily charming. And there's all these strange little tiny doors everywhere with like little knobs on them and trim around them, so they look like little storybook, like they look like elf doors or something. Now, those were part of the heating system that was all radiators and pipes going through the wall. So there was no middle, there is off and on, and if it got too hot in there, you'd close the little door. But it looks like all these tiny little fairy tale elves or goblins are running all over the fucking house. There was a winding staircase with a little Harry Potter room underneath it. It looked exactly like it. I took pictures of all these rooms, by the way, and they have been quite popular on Facebook. I'll post them under today's show in the comments. And like after an hour of wandering, we finally get to the basement, and it did not disappoint. Now there are coffin-shaped racks for storing coffins. There's coffin-shaped carts and pulleys. There's a huge old creaky elevator that went up to the top floor from the bottom of the alley, where bodies would be dropped off at night. They'd be washed in the washing room, which, by the way, the fucking washing room is right out of a Saw movie. There's these 3 little wash bays. They're all rusty. There's old tile and grunginess everywhere. The ceiling looks grungy. It's dilapidated and falling apart. I got a great pic of me and Rhea entering that room. And our looks on our faces, I think, say it all. And it occurred to me that I was standing there. I was looking at these 3 little wash bins. I was like, this is the last shower these people ever got. Right? It's like the last bath you ever get. And it just gets creepier from there. Because finally, it actually goes deeper than the basement. There's like a few steps down. And this little tiny room is the incinerator. And it's the creepiest pick of the lot, I think. It's really just scorched brick and a little square opening that reveals the blackest black you've ever seen.
Did you take any audio recordings while you were there?
No, I didn't. I didn't even think about, like... It's funny because I wasn't in, like, a ghost hunting mood, even though I should have been. I was more in... appreciating what this was as a working facility, appreciating the history of the building and the different time. It was more of a time warp, if that makes sense. And it was an interesting place. Don't get me wrong, it was creepy as shit. But it didn't occur to me to do something like that. Otherwise, I probably would have. But you know me, I'm a pussy about this shit. I'm afraid to go like looking for something. Like I might have just let it record just to see if something occurred. But I'm not going to be one of those dudes that go around trying to communicate with the dead, because that's when you hear those stories about something following you home or something like, oh, this guy's looking for us. He's trying to communicate. I'm going where he's going. I want some more of them shits.
Do you remember when we did our fake EVPs to fuck with each other? That was funny.
Yes, it was. I remember you doing one that was me making fun of my baby speak to Leah.
Yeah, because you fucking texted us.
Wasn't there something, though, that I did one that, like, Twilight hair?
Yeah, you did a response.
Good times. I feel like I had more time on my hands back then. Go ahead, Lau.
Recapping on the real EVPs, this is the same building that Brian, I think it's McNeil, and his wife had EVPs. It was the old Deaconess Hospital, and it was this mortuary that they got like EVPs from the front door, just on a typical Saturday night. So,
well,
you should have. You might never know what you would have found.
Like I said, I would have, if I'd have thought about it, I would have just hit record for maybe 15 or 20 minutes and just gone back and listened to it. But I don't feel comfortable going, is there anyone here? How did you die? Speak to me. I'm your friend. I'm going to give you attention. No, not my bag.
Please
not my bag, friend. But anyways, of course, as I'm standing there in front of this incinerator, I should say, I'm thinking 10 years ago, my best buddy was being shoved into that fucking pizza oven, and I got the darkest, coldest feeling just standing there staring at it. And it's funny because that's the only picture of the bunch that came out just slightly blurry. I mean, it's a decent picture, but if you really look at it, it's a little blurry. I think my hands might have been trembling a little bit when I took that. And just at that thought, not that I was like terrified, it was just kind of like, I think I was having like a weird emotional moment there. And, not just Danny, like I'd been to maybe 10 funerals there. They only have one incinerator, and they all got cremated as far as I know. So that was their last, that was the last time their bodies were whole. There's like all these real world in your face experiences for me going through that, not just because it was a funeral home, but a very specific and personal funeral home. Anyway, it felt really good to get our asses out into the crisp early autumn air after all that, because there were odors all through this place that were very troubling. And
that was a functional facility up until, I don't know, probably
I think 2007. Yeah, not even that. For 2000, it was about 10 years.
One of our buddies used to work there. He out of high school, he was a mortician, studying mortician, and he still is a mortician to this day. Doing it for like 23 years.
Well, they got a bunch of these little apartments of all those art. You can see, and when you look at the photos, all those Art Deco-y bathrooms and kitchens. Those are from different apartments up there. They got about 8 of them, I think. And some of the interns and what do you call them, apprentices would live there, and they would work, they would do all the grunt work, and then they would learn the art, and it is a fucking art, and science of dealing with the dead. And one interesting tidbit, we had a very famous local murder happen here 4 or 5 years ago, the Mackenzie Cowell murder. Let me get John Mark on here real quick.
Hello.
How do? So I was explaining my walk through the whole Jones & Jones building. You're going to have to go back and listen to that. I think it'll intrigue you. But I was talking about the little apartments upstairs. And one of these apartments was owned by the guy that ended up admitting to the killing of Mackenzie Cowell. Now, there's a lot of... This was a pretty well-known kid to some degree. So I wouldn't say the town's torn, but there are plenty of people that think that this kid was not the one that did the murder and that he pled guilty. You know, they claim that he was pleading guilty to get the lesser sentence that it seemed like he was fucked for. So it's a bit of an interesting case. They did like one of those Dateline or murder things. I'll try to find that on YouTube, and if it's available, I'll post it under the comment section of this show. Kind of an interesting,
like one of those making a murderer situations.
Yeah, like a 2020 or a Dateline or something like that. Probably Dateline. But anywho, I thought it was interesting that guy lived up there too. Just a whole lot of interesting stories tied to that place. But like I said, it it was sort of a life-changing experience going through it. Now, it's way too large for my humble ambitions, and likely, I don't know if it's going to work out for Ria's plans, but it has a lot of unbelievable potential, and it's only going for $500,000, which I realize is a chunk of change, but that's not insane considering you're talking 20,000 square feet of a historically important mansion. So we shall see. Quite an experience that day. I'm so glad that I was there with Ria. Sort of an interesting bonding experience, I think, going through that place. But like I said, I would have paid $15 to experience that. Let's get on to any news stories you guys want to cover.
I got a pretty funny one.
Let's do it.
You remember the old ghost hunting shows and stuff like that? You guys remember, what is it, Paranormal State? It was the guy that was kind of
I can never keep him straight.
Well, I think the premise was like there were younger kids, like in college or whatever, it would do kind of like the ghost hunting thing. The lead guy was Ryan Buell. Anyway, he was arrested for fraud. And what was the other charge? It was 2 felonies, theft and stolen property. But basically, the show tanked, right?
Yeah.
And they couldn't get the funds to do an next season or whatnot. So he decided to start a tour called Conversations with the Dead tour. You know, and it sold all over the United States and Canada. Yeah. Well, he took the money, but then he reneged on doing any of the work for it.
Oh, nice.
So he's looking at probably some serious time.
Yeah, you know, this whole world of which we discuss quite often is fraught with shenanigans and snake oil salesmen, right? I was just listening to a rerun with a friend of mine where I made some crack about a lot of ghost hunters these days, or paranormal researchers are in it for the wrong reasons. They're in it to get laid, which is sort of a generic term, like they're just in it for the fame. And Chris was giving me shit about it. And it's true. It's not like these guys are necessarily getting laid, but there are a lot of them that are in it for the fame or for the quick buck, to sell books or just to get their fucking, attention, just to get people to look at them for a little bit. Why else go out and fake a UFO video or Bigfoot video? It never occurred to me to go out and fake something like that. So I always think, well, why do people do that? I mean, one, it's like, oh, let's just see what will come of this, see how much coverage we can get. But, that grows into something and it becomes, now anything can be monetized. I mean, you can turn a viral video into $1 million. People do it all the fucking time. Just with YouTube ads alone. If something gets like 500 million plays, that's a chunk of dough, son. And then that leads to other things. So shenanigans and fakery. I mean, we just did the circus show not too long ago here at world famous Radar Station Gallery, and one of my favorite things in researching some of the sideshow stuff for my art pieces were that almost none of this was real, except for like the freaks. Everything else was either illusion or just complete fakery, and sort of unabashedly so. It was like everyone agreed okay, we can just have fun and go through this thing, understanding that this is all pretty much horseshit. Of course, the kids would buy into it because they believe everything, but I wasn't aware of that it was just a world of shit.
Back in the day, we fucking people were dumb as shit, dude, and we didn't know anything, and there was no way for anyone to find out that shit was not real. So they would just go in there and be like, "A merman? Wow, really?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, when somebody like stuck half a fish onto like half a monkey carcass. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what that stuff is. It's like weird taxidermy art projects.
You know, and people would buy it because they didn't know any better.
Sure.
They're dumb as fuck. But
and you paid your nickel. You didn't want to be.
Fuck, but at least we have the internet.
Right.
What's that?
And you paid your nickel, you know. You didn't want to be a chump. So you were going to tell the stories as if you saw something genuine. Go ahead, Lau.
I was going to say, I mean, seeing something like that in a shadow box, you know, something you can see with your eyes that you really can't touch it, you know, it probably looks pretty damn convincing, I'm sure.
Yeah. Especially, like John Mark said back in the day.
The merman.
The mermaid stuff, all that good shit. I love that. I've always maintained that if for some reason I'd stop running this place as an art gallery, I will open up a museum of the weird. And I will have all sorts of shit like that. Mermaids, you know, a Sasquatch I'll build. Like, I already got and my house is already kind of like that anyway. If I just funneled all my weird shit into a one floor, I could charge, you know, a couple bucks. Put it on a postcard, sell T-shirts, that sort of thing. All right, I'm going to send you guys a video here to look at. This is one of those, like almost everything we talk about at this point, easy to fake and yet an intriguing video to look at. This is the alleged mummy's eyes. The story here is that the body in question died 300 years ago and is known as Saint Innocent, and her remains have been on display at the Cathedral of Guadalajara in Mexico, the Mexican city of Jalisco, and a frequent destination of religious tourists. But the body's been filmed countless times, and you know, dozens of photos. This has never really been seen before, so take a look, see, and it kind of goes back and forth a couple of times, and then about halfway or maybe toward the end of the video, you'll clearly see the moment in question. It is troubling, but just for the sake of conversation.
I call shenanigans. This is like that statue of Jesus that opened its eyes, too.
It is.
It's the same fucking thing.
But put yourself in that room and imagine if you saw that. Like, would your first thought be like someone had rigged something up and is fucking with you? I'd like to say that that's what my first thought would be, but I don't know.
That would probably be my second thought.
Well, your first thought would be something supernatural.
Holy shit, what is this? Yeah, I mean, I would just be like, what is going on? You know, and then like for a split second later, it'd be like, this is shenanigans.
Yeah.
But I would probably be kind of freaked out.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what do you think of that video?
It looks just like that Jesus video.
Yeah, it's a similar topic. Similar thing, I guess. Lau?
I don't know.
Just having a weird little kid mummy like that in a glass coffin is kind of creepy in itself.
It really doesn't need After Effects to make it creepier. What do you think, Lau?
I really don't know. That would be a really tough thing to After Effect, actually. I mean, it's not possible.
I don't think so,
it would,
but
anything can be done. We know that. I don't know. There's something about it that just feels.
I'm clean. Lean into the fucking, it's almost Halloween, and it probably might be real. My heart wants it to be real.
Yeah, it is fun to imagine it anyway. Anywho, anything else before we get on to my super did hour? I will try to move through this as quickly as possible, because I think it might be a little wordy, but maybe not. Witches, bitches. Now, Cat Stevens, our old pal and longtime listener of the show, suggested a few days ago that we do an episode on the true history of witches. And I thought, well, that sounds like a great idea to me. So I'm going to kind of break this up into bullet points that make it a little bit easier to get through in a snappy manner. I think a good podcast lesson is a snappy one, I find. We know that witches go back to the Bible, and so it's safe to assume that they go way back, but where and when did witchcraft actually begin? From my research, it just seems to be find where humans truly began, and that's where witchcraft began, because by most measures, It's as old as time, and it's like really, it wasn't until newer religions such as Judaism, Christianity, Catholicism, all those came along and started telling all the pagans and naturalists that what they were doing was incorrect and that it became synonymous with evil and mischief. I mean, what qualified as a witch changed from century to century or religion to religion. You know, casting spells and practicing natural magic certainly would have been a no-no, but so was dancing in some places, or whispering, or owning a cat, or wearing black, or certain kinds of hats, or angering a man, or making and wearing jewelry. There is so much range of what even makes a quote-unquote witch. And certainly, the Malleus Maleficarum, which we talked about on the Salem Witch Trial episode, claimed that any female sexuality at all was dangerous. And in some places basically insinuated what you need to do is everything in your power to keep a woman from being sexual. Not having sex, but being a sexual creature. And like, shut down that nature, son. This was the beginning of a lot of problems for women. Probably not even the beginning. But anyway, the legend of the witches was really just born out of these fears and prejudices of overbearing religions. But where these women... I mean, were some of these women stirring cauldrons and casting spells and drinking bat's bane and chanting at the moonlight? Of course, some of that was going on. They were practicing their religion, and just like everyone, some practice for good, others for selfish and evil reasons. But we just had that story making its round where apparently a group of witches in the Middle Ages were lopping off dudes' dicks and taking them home as pets and feeding them oats. Did you guys see that story making its rounds?
Yeah.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
I missed it.
But the church...
No, I totally missed it.
Yeah, well, there wasn't much more to that story. It kind of shifted gears after that fact and talked about the penis tree, which is a whole different topic. I'll find that link and post it on the Facebook page. But to the church and to the common people at large at this point, the idea became one and the same. You know, all witchcraft was evil and nefarious. And, of course, men could be witches too, but women were considered weaker and more vulnerable to spiritual attacks, according to men, of course. So men would have been probably given way more of the benefit of the doubt if they were caught acting all screwy. You know, oh, you're screwy there, Shay. Well, let's talk about their appearance, because a lot of this stuff comes from myth that we can't really pinpoint. But if you close your eyes and you imagine a witch, it's probably something pretty fucking far off from reality. You know, the pointy hat, the wart on the big nose, the black cape, black cat in the window riding on a broomstick. But now some of this was definitely born of fiction, but some of it actually has some traceable histories, which I found really fucking interesting. Let's take the pointy hat, for example. Now, witches weren't always portrayed as wearing the black cone of evil. And in fact, most of the earliest depictions of witches show them sans hats at all. But some of the woodblock carvings of the Middle Ages, I guess, depict them wearing mostly crazy, like, rat shit hair, sometimes with their heads on fire. You know, they were so evil that they were literally bursting. Their heads were bursting into flame. And occasionally you would see them wearing hats, but they would be simple bonnets or some other hat that was just a product of that time. So they would just include those as part of the illustrations. And by most account, it wasn't until the 1700s when the penny merrymints, which were little books and pamphlets, they started illustrating witches with pointy hats. And this really caught on, and some of the older illustrations were actually modified to reflect this new idea of the pointy hat witch. So it's really just a trend, and it's also tied nicely, of course, to the witch trial reports of seeing the devil and his head was pointy and narrow. So they put the two together. It's like, well, if evil itself was represented by pointiness, I mean, the Dark One himself had a pointy head, of course the witches would wear hats that made them look more like him. But to me, it just kind of seems like it was a good design to fit the character of the story, and it took off. But why did it show up initially in these books in the first place? Well, one legend is that the churches started forcing suspected witches to wear these pointy hats as a mark and as a penance of sort, and the idea would be that the pointiness of the hat represents a church's steeple, and that they would be reformed by being under in the house of God at all times, basically. Others say that illustrators were just for a long time using pointy things to depict evil, not just Satan, but they would distort figures themselves to be elongated and pointy. I love this idea because all of this boils down to art. At some point somebody had the idea that evil was pointy. And so they started making elongated fingernails, and that's where we got fucking the big long fingernails, Nosferatu. That's where we get that character. It's everything about him is pointy. The ears are pointy, his chin's pointy, his fingernails go on for days, son. That stems from ancient drawings and writings that it just stuck, that things that are long and pointy are fucking evil. But many historians actually seem to think that if there is any real-world connection to witches and hats at all, it may have stemmed from an early Jewish hat that became synonymous with evil in a very anti-Semitic time and place. Or similar thing with the Puritans taking issue with the Quakers. And the Quakers never really wore pointy hats, but hats were a huge part of their way of life and their religion. So, I don't know. I personally feel, to me, the thing that speaks the most to me, like I said, is the art. Like, I think at some point it became a great illustration tool that just stuck. I think that's how we do things. That's how we get myths. These stories are told and retold until something really works and takes hold, and then we just kind of hang on to it, right?
I'm just thinking the old and withery, like when, obviously like a corpse or whatnot, and even people in their older age, they tend to get withery and, kind of pointy, like kind of like a witch, like we were saying in the Nosferatu.
Yeah.
It's the same type of deal, It's just something that's dead and decayed and evil,
Yeah.
It's got its own points because it's just, old and decayed. It's just like
it's old, son.
Got to be evil.
Well, how about them broomsticks, though? Now, my girl Siri posted an article from The Atlantic about this on my Facebook page, and holy shit, this claims, it all started with bread. Now, this is a pretty fucking fascinating story and perfect for the show. So in the Middle Ages, bread, of course, was made with rye for the most part, which, as our listeners may know, may come to contain the fungus ergot. Ergot can make you hallucinate. Batshit, son. I remember the story we did. I think it was probably on the Salem Witch Trial episode, talking about that, the dancing fit. I mean, that entire town was suffering from like 24-hour dancing. They couldn't stop. And they were dropping over. They were keeling over from true exhaustion. Days on end. Dying from dehydration. Now, that was likely caused by a mass overdosing of ergot. And eventually people figured out, and it wasn't too long after this time period that people figured out, them shits got you high as a kite, son. So they started taking it with that specific perp. But the trick here, to ingest ergot would cause some pretty nasty sickness. And they discovered that you could still get high if you put it on topically. So they began to experiment with the different application methods. And they found the best place to absorb a paste made out of ergot mold was the fucking genitals. You see where this is going, folks? literally see where this is going? A 15th century writing proclaimed, and I quote, "The vulgar believe, and witches confess, that on certain days or nights they anoint a staff and write on it to the appointed place or anoint themselves under the arms and in other hairy places." Yes, kids, we see witches on broomsticks in every fucking cartoon and fantasy storybook because at one point, bitches were fucking their ergot smeared broomsticks to get high as a kite. How about them shits?
Ow.
How about them shits?
So the broom was really a psychedelic penis.
Yes, and I saw psychedelic penis open up for low homes here in Wenatchee a couple days.
I saw ergot open for Motherlode. Wait, I was in ergot, and we did open for Motherlode. Never mind.
This is the Atlantic that this story came from, by the way. Pretty reputable. Now, reputable, I should say. That's kind of funny. But the question as to whether these witches ever flew on their broomsticks, the only thing that I saw was people saying, well, come on, they're high as a fucking kite, right? Maybe they were certainly imagining it, and if they're writing their experiences down as a witch, they could have been flying, folks. These are real theories of the origins of a... Think about that. There is no cartoon that hasn't contained a witch, right? And or a children's storybook, fairy tale, and if they're on a broom, somehow most experts seem to believe that came from dildo in your broomstick. I find that unfucking believable, and yet all too believable. Everything is fucked up, right? Like everything we base everything on is pretty fucked up.
Well, I guess then that the whole thing that they are flying on it makes sense too. If there's supposed to be, psychedelics involved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I cut out there, but I was just talking about that. Or maybe John Mark just stopped paying attention.
I don't know. I missed your illusion.
Next, how about them black cats? Well, that's probably more of a simple one to explain. And in ancient witch tales, a common theme was for the witch to have a legion of all kinds of animals, toads, mice, crows, and of course cats. But at some point, the church became very superstitious against cats. And not just black cats, but all cats. I think we talked about how cats were killed in terrible ways back in the witch trial days for this very reason. Historians think it was their spooky nocturnal nature that freaked out the Puritans. But I don't know. Knowing humans, it was probably like one dude in a place of some power that was allergic to cats or didn't like cats, and he probably just made this shit up and got everyone freaked out, and everyone followed him because people follow people, and it was probably just some old dick that was allergic and convinced everyone to start killing him. I mean,
that's what 95% of this shit comes down to anyways.
Yeah,
some asshole
old
who convinces everybody else.
Exactly. How fucking depressing. And it seems like good news, doesn't it? On one level, to be like, well, it's so simple. Whether we're talking about Hitler or something on a much smaller level, or Charles Manson, it's like one dude just convinces people to do shit, and you think that something so simple could be stopped, but it happens time and time and time again. Now, going back to the behavior of these witches, there's really no consensus. So most of what we think about witches really does just come from storybooks and, now Hollywood. And it seems like a lot of historians don't even really believe there were such things as classic witches, not in the sense that we know them. Just a group of people that were afraid of the power that women possessed, coupled with the fascist stance on religion that shut all these people down from whatever their religion was. That became witchcraft. And we just sort of made up a specific entity that really is an amalgam of any number of religious and non-religious behaviors. I mean, dancing, that's not religious, but it was considered witchcraft by the Puritans. And again, making jewelry was witchcraft according to the Muslims at one point. It's such a crazy and bloody and bizarre and tragic and sexually political history that brought us to this iconic Halloween character that we call the witch, isn't it? And think about that every time you see a witch in a cartoon, especially if she's on a broomstick, ladies and gentlemen. I am forever going to seriously enjoy that. But, now we all have the legends and books and the movies, and there are, of course, modern-day people who call themselves witches. Some do this as a true religion. Some it's more of a hobby, but a lot of those rituals that they're doing are really more of a mixture of ancient pagan ceremonies and Hollywood, quite honestly. Again, going back to some of the earliest depictions of, witches didn't look like Stevie Nicks. They looked more like a housewife on Little House on the Prairie. So the religion that fed the myth, that fed the stories, now are feeding back into the religion. And so it goes, I suppose. But that's kind of the funny thing about myth in general. It's a never-ending snowball. But it's kind of funny because you think about witches, you think it's this one thing, and it never really was. There was a group of people that didn't like what another group of people were doing, and they made it a thing, and that thing is as broad as humans in general, which is why it's so ridiculous that they were so widely persecuted. And you got the Spanish Inquisition, you got the Puritans, you've got the witch trials. One last thing I did come across in my research that was fascinating. 1944 was the last woman convicted of being a witch in Britain. 1944. World War II was going on, son, when we were still persecuting people for being witches in the modern world. Think about that. We was invading...
How did that try?
Say it again?
Do you have any deets on how that trial went? Did they
She went to prison. That was an interesting story. That was Helen Duncan was her name, and she If you guys are by your computers real quick, look up Helen Duncan faked photos. Now, one of the things that got her in trouble were people were kind of going after her for being like this guy that Lyle was talking about, a faker. Now, in the early days of photography, well, this wasn't the terribly early days of photography, it was the 40s, but, you know, there's this thing, this idea of people being able to capture the ectoplasm of a spirit leaving a body or an exorcism. And you can see this in photographic evidence. And there's tons of stories of photographers doing this. Most of the major ones have been pretty much ruled out as being fake. But look at some of those pictures, son. Pretty convincing,
wow.
Now, I can't remember some of the earlier photographers, but at least those, there's some like gloopy haziness and the blobby. They do sort of look like spirits or ghosted images of a human, like standing behind somebody. This is a whole other level of fakery that even the old-timey snake oil salesman wouldn't go anywhere near. This has fucking like gauze coming out of her mouth to be emulating ectoplasm, and a couple of them, I don't know if you saw the best one, she's got like a couple of fixtures standing on either side, and they're like witch hazel masks from the 40s all wrapped with white gauze. And that's supposed to be, these look like, anyone who's out there listening that knows their parents have no artistic skill, ask them to make you a Halloween costume. That's what these ghosts look like. And they're not, I mean, they're standing in the room with her. These aren't like tricks of photography. I found that endlessly charming. That still got this woman sent to prison for witchcraft.
Crazy.
Now that goes back to the 1700s when England invoked that witch rule, the witchcraft rule. I can't remember what the law was actually called, but it basically gave the government the right to persecute and torture and kill witches.
Wow.
All the way up until almost the 1950s. Fucking insane. Now, that woman should have, you know, if she had a business license, that should have been taken away. Maybe some fraud charges. I don't know how she was conducting her business, but prison for witchcraft? Pretty fucking loose on the rules there, I would say. I'll definitely post. Maybe that'll be, that might have to be the photo of the week for the episode. But anywho, I think that's enough witchcraft for now. I want to remind people that they can go to talesfromthespacepod.com and support us by clicking the Donate Now button or scrolling all the way to the bottom and clicking the Amazon link. That just takes you to Amazon as per usual. Once you sign in and you buy something on Amazon like you normally would, we just get a little bit of kickback. I need to start remembering to remind people to remember to do that. And also, you can become a Patreon player, supporter. Wow, I think my whiskey's kicking in all of a sudden. Thank God it's almost your time to do the heavy lifting, Chris. I love this part of the show. There's one other thing that I wanted to remember.
Do the poll.
Oh, yeah.
Do our merch poll.
Yeah, where is that, John Mark? Is that on the Tales from the Spacepod Facebook page? I'll try to put a link. I'll figure out a way to put a link on the show, on the fucking hell.
On the website. Yeah, we have a poll up, and we're interested to know what everybody would like to see as far as merchandise that we put out. Like, you know, and you have several options. You can choose whatever you think, and at some point in time in the future, we'll go over the results of that and see what people are most interested in, and we'll take it from there. Maybe make something, T-shirts, mugs, whatever people seem to be most interested in.
Yeah, for sure. That would help us out a lot. Let's get on to some news quiz.
Excellent. Okay. I sent you guys over a picture. This first one is a picture question. This little pink device is used in conjunction with the vagina to achieve a very specific goal. What is this product's purpose? Rod, do you want to describe what this looks like?
Well, right off the bat, it looks like a cross between a mirror and a razor blade, or, you know, a razor. It's pink. It looks like a razor with a wider head than you'd need, and it's got some sort of digital readout, a couple buttons on it. Hard to tell what it is.
I think it looks like a digital kitty litter scraper.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's kind of shaped like a spatula. Yeah. Ooh, interesting.
All right. What does this do? What does this do with the vagina? Is it A, measures semen particles per million and will be a helpful tool for couples trying to get pregnant?
Or dudes trying to be better than their buddies in a jizz off. Let's fucking be honest. The next model of this won't be pink. It'll have like football team logos on it or some shit. 'Cause it's gonna be for frat boys.
Just fucking no fear skulls down the side.
No fear. I'm gonna have 7 billion. They're gonna be betting on their jizz count.
B, it acts as an orgasm alarm clock, waking its wearer up with vibrations that increase until the wearer comes to fruition.
Oh. Boy, that's not it. That's a clever interpretation of the shape of this item.
Or is it C, measures and trains your vagina's ability to do Kegel exercises while reporting data back to your smartphone?
Love me them Kegels. All right. Well, we starting with me
Monster.
first?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. Why do I always want to go with the ones that I want it to be versus the ones that I think it might? I'm leaning towards C, but I feel like I want it to be B. I love the idea of a dildo alarm clock. Now, I got to stop doing this. I got to stop. I got to figure out how to get better at this game. I'm going to stick with my gut and go with C.
Okay.
There might be a Kegel Raider.
Okay, Kegel Raider. Oh no, John Mark.
I'm gonna go with C as well.
Okay, Lyle.
You actually threw me with your intelligence on A, so I'm going to be stuck on A.
Well, fuck you. First off, Lyle.
No, it's,
That was a smart answer.
Remind me, A?
to really say yet to know. So I'm gonna go
Was
with
it the particles per million that got you, big guy?
Oh, that's right. Jizz meter. Yeah.
ppm, baby.
This meter. No fear.
Yeah. That's good stuff. I'm telling you, this will immediately be used for in your faces. Okay, go ahead.
Question 2. It's been reported in the Metro UK that a certain plastic surgery among men is on the rise. Yes, gentlemen, now you can have this done. Is it A, scrotum Botox?
Scrotox.
Turning those wrinkly prunes to plump plums once again.
Who did Scrotox in unison with me? Was that you, Chris?
That would be.
That was the most
thinking
unison
exactly
we've
at the
ever
same
been.
Time, I just didn't get it out.
It's funny because on my
man.
end it came out first, of course. But
I don't even know if it will. Yeah, it'll be.
That's,
Yeah, Scrotox.
is it B, and this one, Lyle, listen up. B, artificial foreskin. Once again,
I can get
it's
back my
synthetic
glory
hood
days.
to cover their goods.
Wow.
I have little catchphrases for them all, guys. Or is it C,
Like, thank God.
saline pumping, which adds a temporary girth boost that can last for up to 4 weeks
For your balls.
Oh, girth.
for your dick?
Girth boost.
Oh, for your dick.
Girth boost. Huh. Okay.
A, scrotum Botox. B, artificial foreskin. Or C, saline pumping. What's up? What's on the rise right now?
I hope for
Man.
Lyle's sake that he can someday purchase a second chance hood. But oh God, Scrotox. What would the point of the Scrotox be? Just to make them bigger, tighter,
No,
not so they don't.
more top. Like less of a prune, more of a plum, if you will.
And I will. Fuck. This is tough. I'm just gonna go in the middle. B, even though that's not the one I'm leaning toward. I can't do 2 C's.
Okay,
B.
fair enough. John Mark.
Gotta suck.
I'm gonna go with the faux skin.
Okay. Lyle. Oh, waiting, big guy.
Oh, show. I'm actually going to go with C. I think the saline.
Fucking fascinating. All right. Question 3. The Telegraph recently reported that a North Carolina woman had sold a fridge to a neighbor at a garage sale. When the neighbor got it home and opened it up, she was shocked to find this inside of it. Was it A, perfectly preserved 100-year-old octopus?
Carbon date that shit? All right.
Is it B, the body of the mother of the woman who had sold her the fridge?
Oh, what? Oh. Now that's a Penny Merriman.
Or is it C, 17 solid gold bars?
Okay, these are all adventure stories waiting to happen. Oh, you know, if a pulp writer from 100 years ago could travel in time and listen to only this podcast, They would be one of the famous
He'd be
writers of
set
our
for
time. Fucking ideas we have pitched. Okay, so holy shit. I love the body story. I got to go with that's a hell of a story, son.
Okay, the body of the mother of the person that had sold it to her. Okay.
I'm dumb, aren't I? I can't wait to see how off I am.
I like that one too. I'm going to go with that one because I like that one too.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I spaced the question in general. What was the question?
It was reported recently that a North Carolina woman had sold a fridge to a neighbor at a garage sale. When the neighbor got it home and opened it up, she was shocked to find this inside.
It's okay. It's probably the body then.
You're going to go with the body as well. All right, perfect.
Feeling better.
Let's go for the answers here. Question 1. The little pink device I sent you a picture of earlier is used in conjunction with the vagina. What it does is it acts as an orgasm alarm clock.
Oh, I should have known by the 2 buttons.
Starting as a low level and generating quite a buzz by the end of it there. It's supposed to be, I guess the first orders like sold out instantly. People are really
Not even which part does what? Because I'm not really sure.
Well, the
about
probe
that.
end goes up the hoo-ha, and then the digital end sticks
No,
out.
I don't think it goes up anything. I think it rests against the clitoris, Ron. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's this spot.
I don't. Do tell.
Right top.
Is that some sort of, is that a relative of the Tyrannosaurus Rex?
It is.
I mean,
it's the clitoris.
Tyrannosaur
functionally,
Rex.
the
When
shape
you rub
of
down
it
with
doesn't.
your thumb in circular patterns.
Suddenly we're just throwing out jokes. Talking over each other. Go ahead, John Mark, what were you saying?
I was saying that it just functionally, the way it's shaped, it doesn't look very appealing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not quite sure, but hey, you know.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to
Who am
see
I to
how it was
judge?
attached, and I demand to see how it's attached.
I'll send you a follow-up photo. Don't you fret.
Excellent. It better not be of it in your ass.
It's like, look at it. It's working.
Product
It's
tested.
working, guys.
I'm awake.
It works for boys, too. Early to rise. All right, go ahead.
Question 2. It's been reported in the... it works for boys, too. It's been reported in the UK, the Metro UK, that a certain plastic surgery among men is on the rise. Ron, you should have went with your gut because it was fucking Scrotox.
Where'd they go with?
Really?
You
I had a feeling.
You went with the artificial foreskin. You had to go right in the middle, you say. Yeah.
You're
Nobody got
right.
that one
That's
right
what they almost
either. Second
No one said
whiff,
Scrotox?
guys. No one said Scrotox.
No. Interesting.
I almost did, but it's just like
Was
I've heard of like artificial foreskins before, so.
Was Scrotox your wordplay, Chris, or is that what they're calling it?
Oh, I think it's actually what they're calling it.
Yeah. Good for them.
I knew you were getting there real quick, though.
Well, I can't wait to hear that back in unison.
Lastly here, the Telegraph recently reported that a North Carolina woman had been selling a fridge at a garage sale. When the neighbor that bought it got it home and opened it, she was a little shocked to find the body of the mother of the woman that had bought it. Yeah, you all got that correct, which means it's a 3-way tie. I got a little tiebreaker here,
Fuck's sake.
a tradish here. I've got a number written down on my pad of paper between 1 and 100.
I know what it is.
Shit.
And the person that gets closest to that number is going to be our winner tonight. Ron, start us.
1 to what?
1 and 100, somewhere in between.
69.
69. Okay, John Mark.
38.
38. Lyle.
63.
63. That number I had written down was 99, which makes Ron our winner.
Yes. I'm back on top, gang. I'm back on top. And it took us 69 to get
I
there.
was like thinking, I thought 99, and then I remembered like the one time, like last time, Ron, didn't you like pick like the number closest to the highest number or something like that? And so I was thinking 99, but wait, no, it's like, why would do that? It's like fall all the way towards the end. No, don't do that. And then it was 99. Anyway.
I think you're right now. Well, I got to say, I am surprised after tonight, the way that I was going after them answers, that I won. Not going to lie.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Anywho, good, fun, solid list. I'm thinking about this dildo alarm clock thing more and more, and if that's not really what this is, then someone needs to do it, because
No, it is what it is. Here, I'll fucking A. Hold on.
but you said that it doesn't go in.
It doesn't go in. Well, I mean, like...
How does it sit? Yeah, give me that picture. I need that fucking picture.
Yeah, you did. Truly.
Let me see how it works.
I want answers.
From the science of it.
Why don't you go ahead and start on your next little story? I'll make sure you get a screenshot here in a moment.
All right.
Well, I will ask a question in lieu of Hollywood Gets Probed.
Okay.
Because it's not. I just want to know if you guys have any suggestions for like TV shows, series that I may not have seen that you have seen that are on like Netflix or Hulu.
Yeah.
Because our options are being diminished because we keep watching all the good stuff, and it's like what else is there?
Right.
You know what I mean? Any suggestions?
Oh boy, have you seen Narcos?
I started watching that. I just don't know if it would be appreciated by other viewers.
Someone's sitting next to me. So we had. You didn't tell us that we had to vote for two. John Mark, are you pregnant?
Well, joint viewing, yeah.
Okay, well, what did you guys enjoy together? Give us a couple of maybe recommendations to get us heading there.
Fargo, Stranger Things. What's that show called? Outlander.
Yeah. Well, boy, tough. You're definitely asking the wrong guy.
It's hard to say.
But I highly recommend Narcos because now why don't you think Jen will dig that? Too violent or too it's pretty violent, but it's not crazy violent, and it's such a fascinating fucking true story. But there's 2 seasons now, and that's a good chunk of viewing if you guys get into it. Maybe, but that's kind of my only recommendation that you wouldn't have already seen.
You can give it a shot.
If it's my suggestion, keep it safe and just watch documentaries, man. You're good to go, right?
Yeah.
Find something you both enjoy.
Series though.
Have you seen all the Venture Brothers, John Mark?
There you go.
No, I haven't.
Funny.
Venture Brothers is something that I got into later than everyone else, and I only recently got back into it. And I'm like, oh fucking hell! You need to watch them shits. That's those.
Speaking of getting caught up on shit, Ron, tell me you haven't not finished fucking Stranger Things yet.
I got 10 minutes left. 10 minutes left, and I'm teasing. I finally finished it. I finished it a while ago.
We have to do it.
What I'm doing now is I'm going to. I got this is heading into my busy season, my super busy fucking season, but I have a day picked very soon, and I'm going to try to marathon the entire thing one more time in order to do our little video cast about it, because I watched it over so many months that there were some holes for me, and I need to go back and really, note for note, because I really want to delve into it. I mean, this has become such a fucking phenomenon. I think that'll be a pretty popular show, so I want to be.
I think I need to watch it again too.
Yeah, let's all plan on doing that maybe in the next week or two. Doing the show. So really get on your rewatching, depending on your schedule. But I know Chris doesn't have to rewatch it. You don't need to see it 7 times, Chris.
Well, it'd probably be 8 at this point. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, and we all know. I think at this point that it. Are you serious? 8?
No. I've seen the first episode probably 8 times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I've seen the whole thing twice all the way through. But no, dude. Okay, we need to do that. Meg sent a great article about how it's linked to the writers were citing something that actually happened in the 80s, and it was all drawn from this one fucking terrible story that actually fucking happened. So I feel like we need to do a show and we can talk about what actually happened and how it correlates.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I did know that.
Missing kid or what? What was the
government experiments on kids with shaved heads and shit? Like it happened in the States in the 80s. Yeah, she sent this fucking article over. It was amazing.
That sounds like Stranger Things that I'm used to hearing about. Let me finish. Okay, so we got your picture here, Chris. Oh, I guess it does. For some reason, I wasn't imagining this going under underwear. Makes much more sense. So this goes between the panty and the clit. Speaking of which, hi, Morgan. Hi.
You're like, help with gravity.
Help with gravity.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. An alarm clock. What do you think of this, Morgan? Would you be a demographic for this? It's an alarm clock. You set the timer as you normally would. You put it in your underwear, and you wake up to it vibrating your clit awake.
No.
Like slowly. Like
Do we
start
not
slow
into that?
and then
No,
Why?
because then I wouldn't actually want to get out of bed.
Well, that raises a good point.
Does it raise
I mean-
something, Ron?
Now, I don't know how you boys will respond, but when it does raise a point. We all know the pointy things are evil, but when I'm done with a little bit of the devil's business, the last thing I feel like is bursting with energy. You know, it's like good night.
You just want to sandwich
Is that
nap.
really how you want to start the day? Did you guys? Chris? Did you have any suggestions for John Mark for a show that he might not have seen?
I think he's seen everything I have.
I'm sure he's seen everything I have. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets
Although-
tough at a certain point, doesn't it?
There is sort of a mixture between mine and Lyle's answer, and I can't remember what it's called. It's something to do with art. I know I talked about it on the show. I'll send you a link to it. I'll look it up and I'll find it. But it's like a 6-episode story of the history of art, or weirdness through art. I can't remember the fucking premise, but it led to
that
like
sounds good.
2 of the shows that we did on the podcast. One of them was, how Hitler squirreled away, I should say, although that art. Some really interesting stories, true stories involving art throughout the centuries.
Well, that was a good series.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good. I've been watching that. I watched it for a little bit, and then I don't watch TV very often.
Can you
but
remember the
I
name
was
of that?
watching. Really don't. I could find out and text it to you, Mark. John Mark.
Yeah, find out and text it. I wanted to really quick, if we still have a few minutes.
Oh, we got time.
You remember how you were saying when you brought up the witch from 1944, and you're like 1944. Well, I've been reading this book called A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's really good. It kind of like talks. So basically, the reason he wrote this book was because when he was a kid, he saw this book that had a picture of the Earth with like a big slice chunked out of it, like a sort of like a exploded view, and he was like, "Wow, that's really crazy. How do they know that there's a core and there's all these different layers?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the book didn't explain any of that shit, and he was like, how do they know this stuff, and where do you go to find out how they figured it out? And so he spent 3 years researching all this kind of science and things that you don't really get the explanations for in really easy to figure out terms, and it's super fascinating. And just going through it, like you don't really think about all the stuff that we take for granted as far as like scientific theories and things like that. There's so many of them are so fucking recent that you just like, it just kind of blows you away how just not very long ago we didn't know shit about what the stuff that we think as far as physics and how the world actually works, gravity, all that stuff, how it actually even works. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's fucking crazy, and I highly suggest. It's really entertaining read, and it's super fascinating. I highly suggest everybody check it out.
Give me the name one more time.
It's called a brief history, I think, or a short history of nearly everything, and it's by Bill Bryson. I just picked it up off of Amazon, and people can do that if they go to our Amazon portal, and they can do that too. Awesome,
Please do. It gives us a little wind in the sail, as Adam Carolla might say. I wanted to talk about, I've had an interesting couple of weeks here in the Ronsters world. Now, first I met up with Rhea, talking about that whole thing on, not seriously, but just kind of musing more than anything else, the idea of maybe teaming up to do our little ventures together. That's not really a plan, but that stemmed off of me meeting up with an old pal that has been coming in and out of my life for the last 10 years, and he's been wanting to invest in me somehow for a while. And I'm always like, well, what do you want me to do? Because when he first came in to my life on that level, I was making films, and he was like, well, I'd like to invest in you as a, like an executive producer, and I believe in you. I believe in what you're doing. I think it's cool, and I've got money, and I want to put it towards something cool like this. But I never really had a tangible project ready to go that I thought was appropriate for an investment like that. You know what he was talking about. Now that I have the gallery and the magazine, there is something to talk about. So we met up for coffee and shot the shit on it. And it all sounds exciting, except as per usual, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. So when I'm talking biz with people, it's so out of my head that I just kind of feel dumb, and I get nervous, like I'm just going to owe this guy a ton of money, or I'm going to lose the money for him, and he's just going to send Jimmy 6 fingers to break my kneecaps. But we're at this place right now where it's a great spot to think about some major changes and growth for the radar station. And one is downtown, a downtown location. Obviously, there are pros and cons to that. Right now, we're almost at the point where to really grow this thing, it can't really be out of my house anymore, because we've had some pretty fucking big crowds. You can't get much more people in here than we've had. And yet it's not quite enough to really sustain it for all the events and all the things that we're doing. So that's one con to being here. One con to being downtown is you have hobos and crack addicts walking. This is Wenatchee. It's not that bad. But I have been downtown at events. There's you got to deal with this shit. And as someone who attends some of these events, it's annoying. But as someone who's putting these on, it would be a fucking nightmare. Also, just having all this shit not being right here under my constant watch has me a little nervous. It's just a completely different thing. Then, of course, you got rent, you got overhead. But anyway, the magazine in terms of like distribution. People are talking to us about that, and it's really exciting. But another idea that people are sending my way, pack it up and take it elsewhere. And that's the big one, obviously, because so I got a phone call the other day from a girl saying she wanted to come see the gallery. And I was about to head out, but I said, all right, I'll stick around and open it up for you. They show up in about an hour and a half in a van with, I shit you not, a unicorn on the side of it, and a round mirrored window. The variety.
The bubble ones.
Fucking tits this van was. And it's not irony. This is not an ironic paint job. I asked them. It's a legitimate 1978 rainbow unicorn mural, and it was fucking fabulous.
It's amazing.
It was. I got pictures. So Johnny and Sean and Carrie hop out, introduce themselves, and I showed them the place, and they fucking loved it. They loved everything about it, but they kept whispering amongst themselves, and I knew they were scheming something, but I left them. When people come over, I sort of leave them alone as if I was working in a record store or something. I just let them do their thing, and, sometimes I'll talk to them, like, hey, you from wherever, blah, blah, blah. Finally, Carrie came up to me and said, so I have to admit, we didn't really come to see the gallery. We came to see you. And I immediately think they want to have a foursome in the back of that unicorn van. As it turns out,
I'm listening.
As it turns out, no. A pal of theirs had come to the gallery a few weeks ago and told them about it, and they all live in Portland. Now, I remember talking to their pal about some kind of art commune that they wanted to get going outside of Portland. And they had a property, they had a whole bunch of peeps, they had a grant from the state, and they had a full stage. They had a large field for parking to hold big events. They had everything, all the licenses, but they were looking for the right people to live there and to help run it. Like a landlord / curator. Well, that's essentially what I've been doing here for the last couple of years. And, the gallery, the stage, events, there's people living here. I am a landlord. Artists hang out, workshops, readings, open mics, all of it. So they got in their van and they came to meet me and try to talk me into moving to Portland to start this commune. And I joked that I always wanted to be a cult leader. But we talked for a long while, and it really sounds exciting. And, of course, it's flattering that they came all this way, and they want me as their, not as their leader, but I guess as some sort of partner in crime. And they all have these amazing connections to like major artists that I know, that I've heard of. They have connections to huge galleries all over the place. They're already networking basically a touring art show of amazing big name art. But I would have to sell the place. I'd have to figure out the pet situation, other cash flows, but it's one of many offers that all of a sudden have been coming my way this past couple of weeks. So my head's been a little spinning as of late. Oh, and some pals in New York are now pulling me to go stay with them all winter to do a major art project with them in the heart of everything. But again, and I could probably quit my job, and this is a paying gig. These are all paying gigs. And Morgan could run the house without me for a while. I'd probably have to close the radar station for a while, but to go straight from the only town I've ever really lived in, to New York City, all on a whim, and people that I've just kind of recently met. These aren't like long time friends, but it's weird how shit can all kind of come at you all at once. I think that's what I've been reeling with this whole last few weeks.
That's how it always happens.
It always happens that way.
How it always happens that way, dude.
And and it's not like, well, I've got this amazing thing. How could I not jump on it? It's like, oh, I've got 4 amazing things, but I also have this thing here that I've invested a year and a half, well, longer than that, really. It's going really well, and it's leading to bigger and better things, and these are examples of that. And the magazine's starting to take off. We're really getting some good we just released, I think I mentioned the last episode, we just got the brand new it's autumn now, but the summer issue did come out officially in summer. It's not going to be available online until autumn, but it's our best issue yet. Veda took over designing and laying it out. It looks fucking beautiful. We've got top-notch artists, and it's getting bigger and better. And it's like all of a sudden this shit's happening, and I started this from not having a fucking clue what I'm doing. And unfortunately, this idea that I was somehow going to learn as I went hasn't really come to fruition. I still don't know what I'm fucking doing. I'm still trying to get this thing on like a proper business track, and we've got bigger and better things happening right here. So not much to say other than that, except stay tuned, because one way or the other, there's some big shit coming up, and that all might have some effect one way or the other on the podcast, because all of this does, everything has an effect on the podcast, and anything good for my life outside the show, I tend to think at this point is going to be good for the show. It's not like I won't have time to do this in the future. As long as our audience is there, and it's at least somewhat grows, I'm into doing this show. It's not a time thing. So other than that,
word up. Well, that's exciting stuff, Ron. Congrats, buddy.
I guess it's more in the lesson of don't wait until you know what you're doing to do stuff. Just get out there and do it. And
no.
You argue with that, John Mark?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that's true. You just, because you don't. You never. You're never at that spot. You know what I mean? Like you're always learning and searching for the next thing and trying to figure shit out. You just got to do it.
What's the Creedence Clearwater song? Someday never comes. Mm-hmm. It really does.
Pretty much.
It really does never fucking come. Whatever that is, whatever that thing you're hoping for, that relationship you think is going to be what makes you happy, or that job, or that thing. There's this no one thing. It's a never-ending path, and it just I'm aware of that, and I've been aware of that for a long time. But when all of a sudden you've just got this shit that's dumped out before you, and any one of these could be amazing experiences, and any one of them could lead to complete disaster and utter ruin. But I guess that's what's exciting about life in general, is that you're always sort of faced with these forks in the road. And for the last couple of years, I've made a lot of bad choices in those forks in the road, and I'm ready to start really thinking shit through and making all the right fucking choices. Of course, it's hard to know. It's easy to know looking back, but when you're standing there, it's just 2 fucking forks in the road. You don't know what the fuck is on the other side of it. It's so fucking frustrating, because the whole 2020 hindsight thing. Oh my god, it's so easy to look back and think, what the fuck did I do that for? That's been a lot of my life lately, honestly. Looking back and thinking, woo, I made that call, huh? Yeah. This seems so incredibly boneheaded at the point that I'm at in my life now. But you don't get that privilege when you're just standing there at 2 or 3 paths in the road. Go ahead, Lau.
Whoa. What was that?
That was a good hitting the brakes there.
I was going to say something. right at the moment you said, "Go ahead, Lyle."
No, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
I was just saying, Ron, that that's what you've been working for, this whole time is trying to get yourself into a position that where you can, the things that you love to do or what that you actually get to do for a living,
Yeah.
And you have successfully, brought that from the universe to you, and now you have choices to make based on that. It's just like, I think that as long as you keep a positive attitude about and kind of know in your mind, even if you don't know exactly what it is that you want, you kind of have an idea. You just decide that that's what you're going to make happen, and you just start working towards that, and then it happens. You know what I mean?
It's funny because in the last 10, 15 years of my life, I have been somebody who has always had a vision of some sort. I'm looking back, this occurred to me literally like 3 days ago. I had some sort of awakening where I felt like the last couple of years of my, like literally the last couple of years, I have been in some sort of fog that I'm coming out of. You guys ever have those sort of awakenings? Where it's almost like you were on drugs, or you just were under a spell or something that you're coming out of, and you look back and you're like, what the fuck have I been doing? And there's a lot of stuff I'm proud of. There's a lot of stuff that's going well for me, but some of it is like, who is that human? Whoa, who's speaking?
What?
I want to know what she has to say. I'm listening to everybody at this point.
I plugged into Discord on X.
I thought maybe like
really
Jim was walking by and it's like, no. Listen, Ron, here's what you need to do. I need closure on that anecdote.
That's what I thought too.
Anyway, go ahead. No, I guess we're done. Anyway, go ahead. Someone tell me what to do. Exciting time.
You're coming out of the fog.
Yeah, and it's great and horrible because the fog hit a lot of things, man, and now I got to deal with those things. But
sure.
I guess I can't be more specific than that because it involves so many other people. But it's just, it's a pretty vague and general thing that I'm talking about here, where it's just overall, I feel like I just was kidding myself about who I was for a while, and it's good to have an awakening to get back on targ, but at the same time, there's some major fucking changes I'm about to go through, and some of them aren't going to be terribly pleasant. But I don't know. I think overall things are going in an interesting direction, and it's exciting. But
yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah, I think so. But like I said, I was heading down that path. My train of thought, I got sidetracked somehow, but where I used to have this constant vision of where I'm going, right now, my vision is just fucking go along with it and think it through and do what you can do. That's super fucking vague, super generic. It sounds like the laziest dad advice you could ever give somebody, and yet that's really where my philosophy is right now. I'm not banking, because there's some really great things about setting goals and having a dream and having a passion, and there's some really bad things about that, because sometimes you're just not going to achieve that dream, and you need to be realistic about that. Sometimes you need to quit the path you're on, and we're taught from a very young age, don't ever fucking quit, stay determined, keep at it. That's kind of bullshit.
Oh, there's so many
Sometimes
things.
you need
there's so many things that we were taught from a very early age that are bullshit.
Yes. Sometimes you need to stop. Go the other way. You never know what your real, I don't know and I don't want to say destiny or what your calling, whatever it is, you never know if you're on the wrong path, right? It's like, just because you won something doesn't mean that's where you should be heading. And I think for the first time in quite a while, I'm feeling that way. Like, I'm just kind of open. Like, whatever. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I still have plans and visions, but if these opportunities pop up that aren't like, that's not what I was thinking, but it's an amazing opportunity, I'm probably just going to fucking do it, because
Yeah,
I'm 40,
I don't think you have
I'm
to be that
41.
specific.
I can't just keep chasing one specific fucking dream. I have to have something. And, you know, discovery happens where you're not comfortable, right? That's where you learn shit. And that's where you could develop new relationships that lead you to new and interesting places. And that's where your life in general can become something more useful and interesting to you. But,
I mean, it sounds like a cliche, and maybe it's said too many times, but it's true. It's like making mistakes and, you know, doing the wrong thing is what helps you figure out what the right thing is, and you learn. You know what I mean?
If you learn from them, and that is the key. You have to learn from it, and you have to take your mistakes and make them count for something, right? Otherwise, they're just shit. Go ahead, Lyle. Didn't mean to step on you there.
Well, I was going to say you always have something to fall back on. If you do take the chance to, you know, do something else, you know, you're never going to know if it was the right thing unless you do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you just got to kind of let go of that security blanket of what you've been holding on to for so long, and then jump in both feet. You know, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, you can still fall back on the things you already do.
It's funny.
You know what I mean?
It's funny that life never really gets easier or. What's the right word?
More clear. It just gets weirder.
Yeah, it really does. And the closer to death we get, it's like some things come, like blossom, if you will. I'm definitely a more comfortable and confident human being than I was 20 years ago, and yet I'm still a fucking train wreck. And yet it's like I'm halfway, if I'm lucky, especially the way I've treated my body, if I'm lucky, I'm halfway to death. And it's like I feel like I'm still having those same internal and external conversations that I was when I was drunk at 19, sitting in Denny's, eating scrambled eggs at 2 a.m, having some philosophical discussion with the chick I'm trying to get laid with. I don't feel like I'm learning all that much. And then when I do, the stuff that I've learned is unusable. Like I've learned certain things that are bullshit and leave certain things behind. But if the rest of humanity doesn't agree, what good does it do? You still have to function with all the bullshit. You still have to live with all the people that haven't had an awakening, or they don't care, or they're not on the same. You're never on the same page with anybody. So it's like we can have all the awakenings we want. We still have to function in this society that's filled with fucking twats and people that just don't want to progress or evolve, or it's such a frustrating fucking game. And
Isn't
yet,
it though?
if you really look at life, it's almost like the whole idea of reincarnation. We live that, right? Whether that's a thing that happens, like when we get to the end of this life, you die at 89 years old and you're born a goat because that's what you fucking deserve. You didn't learn your lessons, whatever. If that exists or not, you can kind of see that metaphor in our own lives, because I don't know about y'all, but I look back 10 years ago and I'm like, that was a lifetime ago. And it was a fucking lifetime ago.
Totally.
And 10 years from that was a lifetime ago from 10 years ago. And it just seems like life is just constant fucking cycles of who the fuck was that? Looking back is like, who was that human being making those decisions? And it's like, if you don't learn those mistakes and you don't learn, oh, you don't want to go down that road, and yet you go down that fucking road again. And recently, I'm not going to lie, I found myself going down roads where the second I'm taking it, I'm like, you know where this goes. Don't fucking do it. I'm still trucking down the fucking road. And that's what I'm trying to do with now. It's like, you know, on one level, it's sort of like refreshing. Yes, it's always going to be an interesting challenge, life. On the other hand, it's like, is anybody happy and is anybody getting anywhere? I go back between those two ideals, but this reincarnation idea I'm liking, because that kind of gives me a weird hope, even though it is cyclical. Because happiness and sadness is cyclical in general, right? We all go through phases of, wow, life is fucking amazing right now. And that's when you should get a little a little leery, because something's coming. But then when you're in those down parts, you're like, but something good's coming around the corner. It's like, does it ever simmer down? No, of course it doesn't. Would you want it to? I don't even know if you'd want it to. Anyway, I'm rambling.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Anyway.
Bless you.
Good ramble. Good ramble.
Was it? Because I feel like it was just a random.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things where I hope it gets people thinking about their own lives. But, Chris, I know you're going through some frustrations right now, and that frustration, I'm not going to give any deets. You're welcome to go into it if you want. But that frustration stems directly from relationship issues that you thought you'd moved past, but you never really moved past them.
Yeah.
I mean, you do, and then you don't, and then all of a sudden something hits you in the face. I've had that with my divorce from Leah lately. Just thought I was past it, thought I was healed, thought I was wound free, and then I texted you, I think a few days ago, Chris. I was like, you ever have one of those days where... Oh, now we're getting into some real personal shit right here. Fuck it. Whiskey's kicking in.
Here we go.
I've been rambling for a while. You ever have one of those days where you're looking
some more stoned.
where you're looking back thinking, I'm never going to be with this human being again, and it hits you in such an overwhelming way that it's almost like a panic attack. And I don't remember what your exact answer was, Chris, but it was to the tune of all the fucking time, essentially.
Yep.
I had not really had that up until a few days ago when dealing with the separation from Leah. Leah's one of my favorite human beings on the fucking planet. I don't see that fading. She's my second wife. My first wife, I don't say that about. I don't think about my first wife. It's a different thing. I loved my first wife. I think she's a good human being. We just ended on such a shit note that we didn't want to be in each... Old Jody, I calls her. We just didn't want to be in each other's worlds anymore. So it's a different thing. Leah and I adore each other still, so... It's like a harder thing to go through, but it really hit me a few days ago. It's like all those things, we got Christmas coming up. That's going to be a fucking bitch to get through Christmas without her. But I got to do all ththose things. You got to go through a whole year. It's like mourning when someone dies. You have to go through a whole year of it. The anniversaries, the Christmas, all the little routines and things that you guys did together before you really start to heal. And I got that ahead of me. And it's not that I kidded myself that I was not going to hurt anymore, but I was blindsided with how in your face this pain all of a sudden was, because I'd fooled myself that I was completely over it. And there's no going back, and it's over. But anyway, go ahead.
It's all part of that process, man. It's probably not the last time you're gonna have some of that either.
Oh, I'm sure it won't be. Yeah.
It's true.
I had a really tough time, actually. So it was my cousin Nick's wedding, and I don't think he listens, so I don't really... I'd tell him this to his face. But I was his best man, and I was there for 4 days, making sure everything was cool, and it was wonderful. It was fucking amazing. But, he had the wedding party stay at the place that I asked Christina to marry me, and... he basically had the wedding that me and Christina had been trying to plan for 2 years at the winery in Chelan. So I found myself at the end of the night in a really bad place after everything was shutting down. I'm going to make fun of it, but I was basically sitting between fucking two vines and some random vineyard sobbing, texting, terrible things to my ex, letting some shit out that I needed to let out, basically. It was it was a low point, but it ended all right. All's well that's well. Didn't die on the way home the next day, so hey. Woo.
Drunk between two vines, texting the ex. It was a low point. Yeah, that's a Twilight Zone episode that you...
Did you have a bottle with you?
No, I had a couple bottles on my tum-tum, though.
It would have been more artful if you had a bottle just in hand, even if it was empty, just sitting out there.
I did.
You should have done. You should have texted your boys, and we would have came up with whiskey bottles, and then we would just try and have a good time.
I forgot you guys are so close. It was. What's funny though is the one thing I was super nervous about was giving a speech, and so I wrote one and I rehearsed it like all the way to
bitches. Am I right?
Am I right, bro? Fuck. What needs me? I'll be between these two vines.
Texting my ex bitch.
Oh God. No. This didn't happen long after all that. No, that was the end of the night. But no, so he told me when I got there, he's like, by the way, the maid of honor is not doing the speech, so you're off the hook. You don't have to give it. And I was having massive anxiety about it. And all of a sudden, I'm like, well, I worked so hard on it,
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, cool, I won't do it. But I ended up doing it anyways, and it was kind of on the fly, and I fucking brought the house down. It was rad.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
Thanks. It was good. It was a good one.
Diet or something?
Well, I wish you would have called. We would have definitely joined you in that field of misery. But
in the vine patch.
Well, I think ultimately you came out of it on top, even though maybe, The texts, I don't know. You may have those.
Keep a straight face. No, we're working it out. So it wasn't like I was like, you fucking bitch or anything like that. It was just like pretty tough to sit through this and, kind of laid out what I was feeling, That's all it was.
Shit hurts.
Yeah,
and, ultimately, I feel like we have to, if for any other reason we have to be more forgiving toward each other in our actions, we all fuck up. Ultimately, one thing that has really occurred to me of late is that we are all just kind of trying to feel okay. And some of the things that we do to feel okay is unhealthy for ourselves. Some of it is hurtful to other people. Some of it's just outright wrong or illegal. But ultimately, I think for the most part, that's kind of what gets us in trouble, That's kind of... we're just trying to fucking feel all right. And this is why I'm asking, is anyone happy? It's like, the more I really get deep with people, it seems like just so many people are suffering with anxiety or depression. And so many people put on some sort of air that they're not. And you think they're doing fine. You think they're this amazing, happy, interesting person. You get to know them and they're miserable. It's just like, is anybody happy? Go ahead, John Mark.
Well, people are happy, but not in the sense that we were taught when you're growing up. You have to be happy, and this
like
is
witches. That doesn't
happy.
exist.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And I mean, your life is basically the moment. It's the moment that we're in right now. The past is gone, and the future's not here yet. We are in this moment.
Yeah.
So whatever's happening in your mind and around you is what you can make to be how you feel, and there's obviously chemicals that get in there that make that hard to do sometimes, but it's like you just have to be constantly thinking about your state of mind, pretty much. You have to just sort of like accept what it is and then sort of deal with what's going on, because you will never, if you're always looking for, this will make me happy and I'll be happy then, and if this happens then I'll be happy, then that's never going to happen.
That doesn't exist.
And if it's hard to explain, but
I think that's something that you do realize the older that you get. That's one of the valuable lessons, is that you no longer go chasing those fool's errands to some degree. All of life itself is kind of a fool's errand, but because where do we ultimately end up? And yet, there are tangible things and intangible things, and we really are taught to chase the intangible because that seems more spiritual, or it seems more artful or creative or interesting, and yet there's all this wonderful tangible shit right in front of us that we sidestep to get to the magic shit that probably doesn't even fucking exist, because it's all made up in our own heads, right? It's all some version of something that we saw on TV or read in a book.
One thing we have to remember is that our parents that we learned all this stuff from didn't know shit. And their parents were basically fucking cave people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
they ate TV dinners.
Seriously. So we have to take all that with a grain of salt and try to unlearn all that shit that's been ground into us. It's crazy.
It's true.
I think a lot of it has to do with the technology and everything that's going so fast these days. Their brain can't fathom all the shit that you're supposed to do. And some people think that, in loyalty in a relationship, you shouldn't be with just one person, for the rest of your life, which we were always taught. You want to find that one person, spend the rest of your life with them.
Yeah.
It's my parents are still married. They're happily married. They never cheated on each other, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
I would personally find that, but you know what? These days and age, I don't think that's likely going to happen. But back to my story, what I was going to tell you like 20 minutes ago was I found a study. It was funny. It was a study that back when I was a kid in school, I had one of my teachers say, whatever, you don't need to be here. You could just be a porn star. Or whatever. He's being a jackass.
Maybe he saw the crippler in the old men's room there.
You're right.
He says it in the bathroom.
You got gold in you, son.
Right. I was reading
I feel like there's just a giant man to get out of
average, well, not the most average adult actor star makes $30,000 a year. I make more than that a year. So it's like, would I be happier being a porn star and broke, or happier doing a job? At least I have money to go out and do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know who would be happier, the crippler, the porn star, or the crippler, the heating and air conditioning.
Crippler, the cripple from touching sheet metal all day. Yeah.
Probably the Goldilocks crippler is the one that goes to work as a porn star, but plays a heating air conditioning guy in the porno.
Goldilocks
Some girls in there. So heat me up, and I'll be, girl, I could totally. Girl.
I saw Goldilocks crippler open up for Modest Mouse.
Oh, it ain't getting better than that. Let's get on out of here. Ron at boronfilms.com.
Be happy. The glass is half full.
Be happy. Well, be satisfied. Happiness is sort of happiness is a myth. Be satisfied. You can be satisfied. Tales from the Spacepod.com. Go ahead.
If you end up between two vines for a bit, that's okay. Just let it out.
Because the sun will rise, your hangover will pass, and you can talk about it on your podcast that goes around the world.
And tomorrow's another day.
Between two vines. That sounds like the name for something. I was between two vines last night, man. No regrets. Ever forward. Ever forward is the two words you always need to keep in mind, no matter what we do. Because you can't listen, not to keep rehashing, it'd be too go get 'em, tiger, but you really can't change the past. It doesn't matter what you fucked up, son. You can't undo it. All you can do is try to fucking make that fuck up matter in the future in a positive way. That's the only thing you can do. And it's not always easy. It's not always apparent how that can work. But even if the next time you're at a fork in the road and you're looking at it thinking, I have no idea what's on the other end of that, maybe there are signs along the way that will tell you this warning, Will Robinson. Turn the fuck around. Maybe you'll see signs that you ignored the first time around. This all does seem like a bit of one of those adventure games where you just get a little bit further and then you die. Then you figure that part out. Then you get a little bit further, then you die, and you figure that part out.
Like Dark Souls.
Every time you figure a little bit out, you get further along. I guess that's the whole point. What the fuck is at the end but death? We'll see. Anyway, Ron at bournefilms.com. Show ideas, suggestions. As Lyle mentioned a week or two ago, send us your ghost stories for the Halloween episode. Get those to us soon. Whether it's a couple of lines or record us a voicemail.
Or a couple of vines,
Couple lines, couple of vines. Whatever your kick is, whatever your rock bottom is. Find it, send it our way, Ron at bournefilms.com. And join us at talesfromthespacebud.com and Facebook/Tales from the Spacebud. Tune in next week. We will be talking about 9/11. And thank you for putting up with our philosophical ranting tonight. I feel like we got super something. I don't know. Was that good?
Deep.
You feel like that was good? I feel better.
Good.
Yeah.
Me too.
Therapy.
Let's do this. Live.
Good night, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.
Nosferatu, Scrotox, Nosferatu, Scrotox, Nosferatu, Scrotox, Nosferatu, Scrotox, Nosferatu, Scrotox, Nosferatu, Scrotox.